Detroit won. Cade made history. The Pistons forced Game 6. Yet somehow, I'm still not comfortable. Not because I'm trying to be negative. Not because I didn't see what Cade just did. I saw it. 45 points. Franchise playoff record. Season on the line. And Cade looked at elimination and said, not tonight. But here's the thing. Game 5 was not a clean win. It was a survival win. Detroit beat Orlando 116-109 at Little Caesars Arena. The series is now 3-2. Orlando still leads. And Game 6 is Friday night in Orlando. So yes, Detroit is alive. But alive is not the same thing as safe. That is the case. I'm Rashid. This is Build the Case Sports. And I'm not here to just recap the game. I'm here to build the case. Coming into Game 5, the question was simple. Did Detroit actually have a counter? Because Orlando had been making the series uncomfortable. They were switching on defense. They're packing the paint. They were forcing Cade into traffic. They were taking away clean, easy looks for Jalen Duren. And they were making Detroit's offense feel like every possession had to fight through a crowd. Game 4 was the warning sign. 20 turnovers, a 6-point loss on the road, and a number 1 seed suddenly staring at a 3-1 hole. So Game 5 was not just about winning. It was about proving Detroit still had answers. And they did, but not in a way where you can sit back and say, okay, we're good now. No. Detroit did not solve every problem. They just found a different way to survive them. And honestly, that might be even more interesting. Here's the case. Detroit did not beat Orlando because the problems disappeared. They still turned the ball over. They still had rough stretches. Orlando still made them uncomfortable. Paolo Banchero still dropped 45. That was not some easy, clean, everything is fixed kind of a win. This was messy. This was stressful. This was playoff survival. But Detroit changed the math. That's what matters. They won the glass. They got second chances. They lived at the free throw line. Duren finally gave them something real, in the first half at least. Ausar was all over the floor. And Cade carried the whole thing like he knew the season was on his shoulders. So the real question after Game 5 is not just, can Detroit win Game 6? The better question is, can this formula travel? Because it worked in Detroit. Now it has to work in Orlando. Let's start with Cade. 45 points, 13 for 23 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, 14 for 14 at the free throw line. That's ridiculous. This is not just a star having a good night. This is a player stepping into the moment. The kind of moment where if you lose, the whole season starts getting judged differently. And Cade answered. Every time Orlando pushed, he answered. Every time the lead started feeling shaky, he answered. Every time the game got tight, he gave Detroit something. This is what a franchise player is supposed to look like. But here's where I still am not feeling comfortable. Cade also still had 6 turnovers. So this was not a perfectly clean, controlled game. It was brilliant, but it was still heavy. Detroit needed Cade to be historic just to survive at home. That's amazing, but it's also dangerous because 45 points can save you once, but 45 points cannot be your whole plan. That's not a strategy. That's a rescue mission. Rescue missions are exhausting. And this is why the Cade conversation has to be honest. Paolo Banchero had 45 too. That matters because this was not one of those games where Detroit's star went nuclear and Orlando had no answer. Orlando had an answer. Paolo was the answer. He kept them in it. He made it uncomfortable. He made sure Detroit never fully relaxed. So when Cade gives you 45 and Paolo gives Orlando 45, the game is not decided by the star headline alone. The stars matched each other. The margins decided it. That's the whole game right there. The stars matched each other. The margins decided the game. And in game 5, Detroit finally won enough of those margins. Now let's not lie to ourselves. Detroit still had 17 turnovers. That is not clean. That is not comfortable. That is not something you want to take on the road and just hope it works out. Cade still had 6 of them. Ausar had 5 of them. So no, the turnover problem did not just disappear because Detroit won. That's where fans can get tricked. A win can make the same problem look smaller, but the problem is still there. The difference is that in game 4, those lost possessions buried Detroit. In game 5, Detroit found ways to get some of them back. That's the shift. Game 4 was lost possessions. Game 5 was recovered possessions. That's the better way to understand this win. Detroit gave some possessions away, but this time they went and stole them back. Detroit won the rebounding battle 49-33. That is huge. They grabbed 16 offensive rebounds. Orlando only had 8. So Detroit doubled them on the offensive glass. That's not just effort. That's survival math. Because when you turn the ball over 17 times, you need extra chances somewhere else. And Detroit found them on the glass. Every offensive rebound gave them another breath, another shot, another chance to reset, another way to survive a possession that almost went wrong. That's why this game felt different. Not because Detroit suddenly became perfect. They didn't. But because they played with more force, more activity, more urgency. They made Orlando deal with their bodies. They made the game physical. They found points and possessions doing the dirty work. And in the playoffs, that stuff is not optional. That stuff is the game. Now let's talk about the free throw line, because this is where the game really starts telling on itself. Detroit made 28 free throws. Orlando made only 16. That's 12 plus for Detroit in a 7-point win. That's not a side note. That's a margin. Detroit turned contact into control. They got downhill. They got into the bodies. They made Orlando defend without fouling. And when Detroit got to the line, they actually converted. Cade was 14 of 14. Duren was 4 for 4. That matters because free throws do more than add points. They slow the game down. They let you breathe. They let you set your defense. They put pressure on the other team. They punish aggressive defense. And when a game is messy, free throws can be the difference between surviving and going home for the year. Detroit did not play perfect basketball. They played physical basketball, their trademark. And in game 5, physicality became part of the counter. Now we have to talk about Jalen Duren. Because coming into this game, one of the biggest questions was whether he could matter again. Orlando had been making him feel smaller in this series. They were crowding the paint. They were making Cade's reads harder. They were taking away clean rim protection. So Duren did not need to come out and be the star. Be nice, though. He just needed to stop being invisible. And he did, for the most part. 12 points, 9 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, 4 for 6 from the field, 4 for 4 from the line. That's not a monster stat line, but it is useful in the playoffs as a stat line. And useful matters. He got involved early. He put pressure on the rim. He gave Detroit second chances. He made Orlando feel him. That's what Detroit needed. Not perfection, presence. That's a difference. Duren didn't need to dominate the story. He just needed to get back in the story. And in Game 5, he did. Then there's Ausar Thompson. And honestly, this box score looks like somebody spilled energy drink all over the stat sheet. 6 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks, and 5 turnovers. That's not clean, but it is everywhere. Ausar wasn't perfect, but he changed the energy of the game. He gave Detroit activity. He gave them defense. He gave them transition pressure. He made Orlando feel rushed. He made passing lanes unsafe. He made rebounds feel contested. He turned normal possessions into fights. And sometimes in the playoffs, chaos is the counter. Now, is there a risk with that? Absolutely. 5 turnovers is not nothing. But with Ausar, the question is always, does the chaos help more than it hurts? In Game 5, it helped. Detroit needed somebody to make the game uncomfortable for Orlando too. And Ausar did that. So why am I not still comfortable? Because Detroit won, but a lot of the danger signs are still there. Orlando still scored 109. Paolo still had 45. Detroit still had 17 turnovers. Cade still had to be historic. And if your plan is, Cade, please save us again tonight, that's not enough. That might get you one game. It might get you a great moment. It might get you a franchise record, but it's not how you want to live the rest of the series. Game 6 is different. It's in Orlando. The crowd changes. The energy changes. The pressure changes. And now the question is whether Detroit can bring the same formula without needing to be heroic. Can they rebound like that on the road too? Can they keep Duren involved? Can Ausar bring chaos without giving too much back? Can Cade be great and a little cleaner? Can Detroit get to the line again? That's what Friday is about. Game 5 proved Detroit had answers. Game 6 will tell if those answers are real. So here's the verdict. Detroit survived Game 5. They did not fix every problem. They survived inside the mess. Cade made history. Paolo matched him. The stars canceled each other out. And the margins decided the game. Detroit won the glass. Detroit recovered possessions. Detroit won the free throw battle. Duren stopped being invisible. Ausar turned chaos into value. And together, that was enough to keep the season alive. But now it has to travel. That is the real case. Not just that Detroit won, not just that Cade scored 45. The real case is this. Detroit found a survival formula. Now Orlando gets to test it again. And Friday will tell us whether Game 5 was the start of a comeback or just a last stand at home. So drop your verdict in the comments. What has to travel to Orlando first? The rebounding, the free throws, Duren's activity, Ausar's chaos, or Cade being Cade? And also, are you comfortable now? Or are you like me? Happy Detroit won, but not fully convinced. Drop your verdict in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, not just recaps, but actual cases, subscribe to Build the Case Sports. Because every big game, we're not just talking about what happened. We're asking what it proved. And Game 5 proved this. Detroit can survive the mess. Game 6 will tell us if they can control it.
Thank you all for watching this here video.